In the shadows of our global economy, a hidden world thrives, built on deception, technology, and the silent movement of billions. For decades, money laundering meant stuffed duffel bags, cash-filled walls, and midnight border crossings. Criminals physically smuggled their dirty money, hoping to outrun the law. Then came the banks. Criminals thought they could hide in plain sight, depositing stolen funds through legitimate institutions. But banks evolved. Authorities caught on. The game changed. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, fake invoices, layer upon layer of deception. But even these methods were just the beginning. Fast forward to today. We live in a hyper-connected world where everything moves at the speed of light. And crime has gone digital. Money no longer travels in bags. It travels in code. It flows through cryptocurrencies, encrypted servers, and phantom companies that exist only on paper. The old playbook is obsolete. Welcome to Money Laundering 2.0. Cryptocurrency has created a perfect storm for financial crime. Bitcoin, Monero, Ethereum. These aren't just investment vehicles. They're weapons in the arsenal of modern criminals. Transactions recorded on public ledgers, yet identities remain hidden. It's the illusion of transparency, masking complete anonymity. But cryptocurrency is just one tool. Behind the curtain, encrypted servers store the evidence. Dark web marketplaces process the transactions. Shell companies provide the legitimacy. Together they form an ecosystem designed for one purpose: to make dirty money vanish. The tracks are covered before they're even made. In this investigation, we're pulling back the curtain completely. You'll discover how criminals weaponize cryptocurrency to move billions anonymously. The role of shell companies in creating legitimate-looking financial facades. How dark web servers operate as invisible banking systems. The global race between regulators and criminals. And who's winning. This isn't just a crime story. It's a financial thriller involving high-tech heists, digital anonymity, and a multi-trillion-dollar shadow economy that touches every corner of the globe. But here's what matters most. This battle affects you, your financial security, your economy, your future. The fight to secure the global financial system is happening right now, in code, in courtrooms, and in the darkness of encrypted networks. Let's expose how it all works. Money laundering is financial alchemy, turning illegal profits into legitimate wealth. Drug trafficking, fraud, corruption, human trafficking. The crimes vary, but the goal is always the same. Make dirty money clean enough to spend without attracting attention. Think of it as an elaborate magic trick. The money enters the system in one form and exits, looking completely different. The criminal is the magician, and financial institutions are the stage. Money laundering follows a predictable pattern: placement, layering, and integration. Placement is the entry point. This is the most vulnerable stage for criminals. Large amounts of illicit cash must enter the financial system without triggering alarms. They break it into smaller deposits, a technique called smurfing. They funnel it through cash-heavy businesses, casinos, restaurants, laundromats. They purchase luxury goods, watches, cars, art, anything to get the money into the system. A layering is where things get complex. The money is moved through a maze of transactions specifically designed to confuse investigators. It's transferred between multiple accounts, converted to different currencies, routed through shell companies, across various jurisdictions. Each transaction adds another layer of separation from the original crime. The paper trail becomes a labyrinth. I-integration is the finish line. By this stage, the money appears legitimate. It's invested in real estate, businesses, or stocks. The criminal can now openly enjoy their wealth. To everyone watching, it looks like normal business activity. The transformation is complete. We're not talking about small-time operations anymore. Money laundering has evolved into a multi-trillion-dollar global industry. It destabilizes economies. It finances terrorism. It empowers organized crime. It corrupts governments and undermines legitimate businesses, forced to compete against criminal enterprises with unlimited dirty capital. Modern criminals aren't working alone with suitcases of cash. They're operating sophisticated networks, spanning continents, employing cutting-edge technology that rivals Silicon Valley startups. And they're always adapting. Between 2010 and 2014, approximately $20 billion disappeared through a web of 96 companies across multiple countries. This was the Russian laundromat, one of history's most sophisticated laundering operations. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity. Russian companies would create fake debts to shell corporations in countries like Moldova and Latvia. When the debts went unpaid, Russian judges complicit in the scheme would issue rulings ordering payment. The money would then flow through European banks, emerging as legitimate court-ordered transfers. The funds financed political agendas, bribed officials, and enriched oligarchs. For years, it operated in plain sight, hidden behind legal contracts and banking procedures. It took whistleblowers and investigative journalists to expose the truth. Even then, prosecutions were limited. Most perpetrators remained free. In 2018, the world learned that Danske Bank's Estonian branch had processed over $200 billion in suspicious transactions. Money from Russia, Azerbaijan, and beyond poured through the bank between 2007 and 2015. Red flags were everywhere. Employees reported concerns. Auditors raised questions, but the profits were too good to refuse. Fictitious accounts, ghost companies, obvious money laundering patterns. Yet the bank allowed it to continue for nearly a decade. The scandal led to resignations, investigations, and billions in fines. But the damage was done. The money had already vanished into the global economy. These cases reveal a disturbing truth. The system isn't just being exploited. Sometimes it's complicit. We've just scratched the surface of how traditional money laundering works, but the methods we just covered, they're already obsolete. If you want to understand where financial crime is headed, hit that subscribe button right now. We're about to expose the cutting-edge technologies that make the Russian laundromat look primitive. Drop a comment below. Have you ever wondered how criminals cash out cryptocurrency without getting caught? That's exactly what we're revealing next. Stay with us. Cryptocurrency didn't just change how we think about money. It revolutionized how criminals move it. Blockchain technology promised transparency. Every transaction recorded on a public ledger, but it delivered something criminals valued even more: pseudonymity. You're not identified by your name. You're identified by an alphanumeric address, and creating new addresses is effortless. For those who know the system, it's near total anonymity. Traditional banking requires identification, documentation, and oversight. Cryptocurrency exchanges, especially unregulated ones, require none of that. Here's the basic playbook. Criminals acquire cryptocurrency through illicit means: ransomware payments, dark web sales, fraud. They then use mixing services or tumblers that pool together cryptocurrency from multiple users and redistribute it, severing the connection between sender and receiver. They move funds through chain hopping, converting Bitcoin to Monero to Ethereum to another privacy coin, creating a maze of conversions. They use decentralized exchanges, DEXs, that operate without centralized oversight, facilitating peer-to-peer trades that leave minimal traces. Finally, they cash out through crypto ATMs, peer-to-peer platforms, or offshore exchanges that don't enforce Know Your Customer (KYC) regulations. The money has transformed from criminal proceeds to clean crypto, ready to be converted to fiat currency. 2011. A darknet marketplace called Silk Road launches. It operates on a simple premise: complete anonymity for buying and selling anything illegal: drugs, weapons, stolen data, counterfeit currency, payment, Bitcoin only. For 2 years, Silk Road processed over $1 billion in transactions. Every purchase was a money laundering operation, converting illegal products into cryptocurrency that could then be laundered into legitimate funds. Ross Ulbricht, the site's creator known as Dread Pirate Roberts, was arrested in 2013. The FBI seized 144,000 bitcoins, but Silk Road proved a concept. Cryptocurrency could create an anonymous marketplace that operated beyond traditional law enforcement reach. When Silk Road fell, dozens of similar markets rose to take its place. The playbook was established. Bitcoin is pseudonymous, not anonymous. Every transaction is visible on the blockchain. Advanced analytics can trace the flow of funds, identify patterns, and sometimes reveal identities. Law enforcement caught on to this, so criminals evolved. Enter privacy coins, Monero and Zcash. Monero uses ring signatures that combine multiple transaction signatures, making it impossible to identify the true sender. It employs stealth addresses that obscure the recipient. Transaction amounts are hidden. Every detail is encrypted. Zcash offers shielded transactions using zero-knowledge proofs, cryptographic methods that verify transactions without revealing any details about them. These currencies were designed for privacy. They've become the gold standard for criminal finance. When privacy coins are combined with mixing services and chain hopping, the money trail becomes virtually impossible to trace. Cryptocurrency exchanges are the bridge between the crypto world and traditional finance. They're also the weak link. Legitimate exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken enforce strict KYC and AML compliance. They verify identities, report suspicious activity, and cooperate with law enforcement. But there's another tier, unregulated exchanges operating in jurisdictions with minimal oversight. Some actively market themselves as no KYC platforms. Others simply turn a blind eye to obvious laundering. The 2016 Bitfinex hack illustrates the problem. Hackers stole $70 million in Bitcoin. Those funds were moved through mixers, converted to privacy coins, and gradually cashed out through multiple exchanges over several years. While some funds were eventually traced and recovered, the majority disappeared into the financial system. The exchanges that facilitated those transactions, most faced no consequences. Modern crypto laundering relies on sophisticated tools. Bitcoin mixers or tumblers like Wasabi Wallet and Chip Mixer pool together funds from multiple users, shuffle them through thousands of microtransactions, then redistribute them. The original source becomes untraceable. Decentralized exchanges, like Uniswap and PancakeSwap, facilitate trades without intermediaries. No central authority, no identification requirements, just wallet addresses trading directly with each other. Peer-to-peer platforms connect buyers and sellers directly. Cash trades, no records, no oversight. Crypto ATMs scattered across major cities allow users to convert cryptocurrency to cash with minimal identification, often just a phone number. Together, these tools create an ecosystem where money can flow freely, changing forms and jurisdictions, leaving virtually no traceable path. Law enforcement faces unprecedented challenges. Cryptocurrency operates globally, instantly. A transaction initiated in Tokyo can be completed in London milliseconds later, routed through servers in Iceland, processed by an exchange in the Seychelles, and involve parties in Brazil. Which jurisdiction has authority? Where did the crime occur? Who can investigate? Traditional financial investigations rely on subpoenas to banks, which maintain detailed records. Cryptocurrency exchanges, especially offshore ones, may not keep records, may not respond to legal requests, or may not even be identifiable. The dark web adds another layer. Marketplaces operate on encrypted networks accessible only through specialized software like Tor. They accept only cryptocurrency. Users are anonymous. Servers are hidden. When Alphabay, the largest dark web marketplace after Silk Road, was shut down in 2017, it had facilitated hundreds of millions in illegal transactions. The investigation required unprecedented international cooperation between American, Thai, Canadian, and Dutch law enforcement. One marketplace down, but dozens more continue operating. Cryptocurrency has fundamentally changed the money laundering game, but it's only one piece of a much larger puzzle. If this investigation is opening your eyes to how the financial underworld operates, do two things right now. First, smash that like button to help this exposé reach more people who need to understand these threats. Second, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because in our next segment, we're revealing how shell companies work hand in hand with crypto to create bulletproof laundering operations. Question for the comments: should cryptocurrency be more heavily regulated, or is financial privacy a fundamental right? Let's debate. The investigation continues. Imagine a company with no office, no employees, no products, and no services. Yet it has bank accounts, holds assets worth millions, and conducts international transactions daily. This is a shell company, a legal entity that exists purely on paper, designed to obscure the true ownership of wealth. They're not inherently illegal. Legitimate businesses use them for privacy, asset protection, and tax optimization. But in the hands of criminals, shell companies become the perfect laundering vehicle. The shell company's scheme follows a predictable pattern. Step 1. Establish a company in a jurisdiction with strong corporate secrecy laws. Panama, the British Virgin Islands, Delaware, the Seychelles. These locations allow anonymous ownership through nominee directors, people who serve as the official company leadership while the true owners remain hidden. Step 2. Open bank accounts in the company's name. Now illicit funds can be deposited as business revenue. Step 3. Create a network of shell companies. Money moves between them through fake invoices, fictitious contracts, and sham transactions. Each transfer adds legitimacy and complexity. Step 4. The funds emerge as clean business profits, ready to be invested in real assets, real estate, stocks, luxury goods. The criminal's identity is buried under layers of corporate structures. Following the money trail requires penetrating multiple jurisdictions, each with different regulations and varying levels of cooperation with international investigations. April 2016. The world's largest data leak in history exposes the offshore financial industry. 11.5 million documents from Mossack Fonseca, a Panamanian law firm, reveal how the global elite used 214,000 shell companies to hide wealth, evade taxes, and launder money. The files implicated 12 current or former world leaders, 128 politicians and public officials, celebrities, business leaders, and criminals across 200 countries. The leak revealed shell companies holding billions in hidden assets. Some were used for tax avoidance, ethically questionable, but technically legal. Others clearly facilitated money laundering, sanctions evasion, and corruption. The fallout was global. Resignations, investigations, arrests. Iceland's prime minister stepped down. Pakistan's prime minister was disqualified from office. Dozens of officials faced criminal charges. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Mossack Fonseca was just one firm among thousands offering similar services. The Panama Papers exposed a single thread in a massive web. November 2017. Another leak. 13.4 million documents, this time from Appleby and other offshore service providers. The Paradise Papers showed that the Panama Papers revelations changed nothing. The same structures, the same secrecy jurisdictions, the same techniques, all still operating at full scale. This leak revealed multinational corporations shift profits to avoid billions in taxes, how wealthy individuals hide assets in offshore trusts, how shell company networks continue operating despite increased scrutiny. One case stood out. A Russian investor with ties to the Kremlin had invested hundreds of millions through shell companies into Facebook and Twitter. The investments were routed through offshore entities, obscuring their origin and purpose. The Paradise Papers confirmed what investigators already knew. Shell companies aren't going away. They're too profitable, too useful, and too easy to create. Shell companies enable sophisticated laundering techniques. Trade-based money laundering uses falsified invoices to move money internationally. A shell company in Hong Kong purchases $10 million in electronics from a shell company in Panama. The goods don't exist, but the money moves legally as payment for international trade. Over-invoicing and under-invoicing manipulates declared values. Export goods at inflated prices to move more money out of a country. Import at reduced prices to bring laundered money in. The difference between real and declared values is the laundered amount. Layering through multiple entities creates intentionally complex corporate structures. Money passes through 5, 10, 15 companies across different jurisdictions. Each transfer appears legitimate. The cumulative effect is complete obscurity. Real estate investment allows shell companies to purchase property, holding valuable assets while hiding ownership. Luxury real estate in London, New York, Miami, and Vancouver is often purchased by shell companies, making it nearly impossible to identify the true owners. These techniques transform flagrantly illegal proceeds into seemingly legitimate business operations. Shell companies don't create themselves. Behind every corporate veil stands an army of professionals making it happen. Lawyers establish the entities, draft the documents, and provide legal shields. Accountants structure the finances, minimize tax exposure, and ensure transactions appear legitimate. Bankers open accounts, process transfers, and sometimes deliberately ignore red flags. These professionals, called gatekeepers, are supposed to prevent money laundering. Instead, some become essential accomplices. They operate in a lucrative gray zone. Their services are legal, but they're often aware their clients are engaged in illicit activity. The fees are too substantial to ask uncomfortable questions. The Danske Bank scandal illustrates this perfectly. Internal audits flagged the suspicious Estonian branch transactions. Employees raised concerns. Whistleblowers reported obvious laundering. Yet the bank continued processing billions because the profits outweighed the risks. When the scandal finally broke, the bank paid fines, a cost of doing business. Most individuals involved faced no criminal charges. Fighting shell company laundering requires international cooperation, but financial regulations vary dramatically across jurisdictions. Some countries maintain strict beneficial ownership registries, requiring disclosure of true ownership. Others offer complete anonymity as a competitive advantage, marketing themselves as secrecy havens. The result? Criminals simply jurisdiction shop, establishing entities wherever regulations are weakest. Even when regulations exist, enforcement is inconsistent. Investigating shell company networks requires resources, expertise, and international cooperation. Many jurisdictions lack one or all of these. The process of tracing ownership can take years. By the time investigators penetrate the corporate structures, the money has moved on. The tide is slowly turning. The European Union's fifth anti-money laundering directive mandates beneficial ownership registries, making it harder to hide behind shell companies. The United States Corporate Transparency Act, passed in 2021, requires companies to disclose their true owners to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN. International cooperation is increasing. The OECD's Common Reporting Standard facilitates automatic exchange of financial information between countries, making offshore hiding places less secret. High-profile prosecutions are sending signals. Following the Panama Papers, authorities worldwide launched over 150 investigations, resulting in billions in recovered taxes and criminal charges against numerous individuals. But the system adapts. As regulations tighten in traditional secrecy havens, new ones emerge. The shell company industry simply relocates. The battle continues. The dark web is not a place. It's a parallel internet, intentionally hidden, accessible only through specialized tools designed for anonymity. While the surface web contains websites indexed by Google and accessible to anyone, the dark web operates on encrypted networks like Tor, where users and site operators remain anonymous. This architecture creates a perfect environment for criminal enterprise, illegal marketplaces, hacking forums, money laundering services, all operating beyond the reach of traditional law enforcement, hidden in layers of encryption and anonymization. Accessing the dark web requires Tor, the onion router, software that routes internet traffic through multiple encrypted layers, concealing the user's location and identity. Websites on the dark web use onioned addresses, random strings of characters, impossible to find through search engines. You need to know the exact address or find it through dark web directories. This creates an ecosystem where minus users are anonymous. Websites are untraceable. Minus transactions are encrypted. Law enforcement has minimal visibility. It's the perfect infrastructure for money laundering operations. The dark web hosts hundreds of marketplaces selling illegal goods and services, drugs from individual doses to wholesale quantities, weapons from handguns to explosives, stolen data, including credit cards, passports, and social security numbers, hacking tools and services, for hire counterfeit currency, and documents, money laundering services that exist solely to clean illicit funds. These marketplaces operate like Amazon or eBay, complete with user reviews, vendor ratings, and customer service. The difference: every transaction is illegal. Payments are exclusively in cryptocurrency, primarily Bitcoin and privacy coins like Monero. Each transaction is simultaneously a purchase and a money laundering operation, converting criminal proceeds into cryptocurrency, which can then be laundered into clean funds. When Silk Road fell in 2013, criminals didn't abandon the model, they perfected it. Alphabay launched in 2014, quickly becoming the largest dark web marketplace in history. At its peak in 2017, over 200,000 users, 40,000 vendors, 250,000 listings for illegal goods, estimated billions in transactions. Alphabay offered everything from drugs to malware to stolen financial data. It provided escrow services, dispute resolution, and vendor verification, a fully functional illegal economy. Money laundering was built into the platform. Users purchased cryptocurrency, deposited it into Alphabay wallets, made purchases, and withdrew funds, all while the platform mixed and tumbled the crypto, obscuring its origins. The takedown in July 2017 required a coordinated international operation involving the FBI, DEA, Europol, and law enforcement from Thailand, Canada, and the Netherlands. Alexandre Casas, Alphabay's creator, was arrested in Thailand. He died in custody days later, officially ruled a suicide. The marketplace was seized and hundreds of vendors were identified. But within weeks, new marketplaces emerged. The infrastructure remains. Dark web operations require infrastructure, servers to host websites, storage for data, bandwidth for transactions. Criminals use offshore hosting providers in jurisdictions with minimal oversight and strong privacy laws. Romania, Russia, Iceland, and certain Asian countries are popular choices. These hosting providers offer bulletproof hosting providers that ignore abuse complaints and legal requests. Anonymous registration, no identity verification. Encrypted storage data protected from unauthorized access. DDoS protection. Defenses against law enforcement attempts to disable sites. Payment is exclusively in cryptocurrency, creating no paper trail linking the server to its operator. Servers are often virtual, distributed across multiple physical locations, making seizure difficult. Even when law enforcement identifies and seizes one server, mirrors and backups ensure the site remains operational. Beyond hosting, Criminals use layers of privacy services. VPNs, virtual private networks, encrypt internet connections, and mask locations, making surveillance difficult. Encrypted communication platforms like certain implementations of Signal, Telegram channels, and PGP encrypted email allow coordination without interception. Cryptocurrency mixers integrated into dark web services automatically tumble funds, ensuring anonymity. Dead drop services facilitate physical exchanges without direct contact. Digital coordination of cash or goods left in predetermined locations. These tools combine to create operational security that rivals intelligence agencies. Modern cybercriminals are sophisticated, paranoid, and difficult to catch. August 2016, hackers breach Bitfinex, a major cryptocurrency exchange, stealing 119,756 Bitcoin, worth approximately $70 million at the time. The stolen Bitcoin was immediately moved through a sophisticated laundering operation. Minis split into thousands of smaller transactions, run through mixing services, converted to various cryptocurrencies, moved through dark web exchanges, gradually cashed out over years. Law enforcement tracked the stolen funds across the blockchain, identifying patterns and tracing movement, but the mixers and privacy coins created gaps in the trail. By 2022, authorities had traced only a portion of the stolen Bitcoin, recovering approximately $3.6 billion worth. The value had increased dramatically. 2 individuals were arrested in New York, but the case illustrated the challenge. Even with advanced blockchain analysis, mixers and privacy services create blind spots that make complete recovery nearly impossible. Law enforcement has evolved its tactics, infiltrating the dark web through undercover operations. Agents pose as vendors or buyers, building cases from inside marketplaces. Node surveillance, monitoring Tor network traffic patterns to identify site operators. Exploit attacks, using zero-day vulnerabilities to unmask users or servers. Seizure and continuation, taking over marketplaces and running them to identify users. Exactly what happened with Hansa Market in 2017. After Alpha Bay's takedown, Dutch police revealed they had controlled Hansa Market for weeks, monitoring all transactions and identifying thousands of users before shutting it down. These operations require immense resources and international cooperation. For every marketplace shut down, the authorities gather intelligence about users, vendors, and methods, playing the long game against a constantly adapting adversary. The dark web continues evolving. Marketplaces now use advanced security, requiring multi-factor authentication, PGP verification, and multi-signature cryptocurrency transactions. They've decentralized, moving away from single sites vulnerable to seizure toward distributed platforms that can't be shut down. The cat-and-mouse game continues. Law enforcement shuts down marketplaces. Criminals launch new ones. Technology advances on both sides. But make no mistake, the dark web remains a critical component of global money laundering infrastructure, processing billions annually in illicit transactions. We've journeyed from cryptocurrency to shell companies to the dark web's hidden infrastructure, each component working together in a sophisticated laundering ecosystem. If this deep dive has been valuable, I need you to do 3 things. 1. Subscribe to Crimes After Midnight. We produce the most thorough investigations into financial crime on YouTube, and we're just getting started. 2. Share this video. This information needs to reach more people. Financial literacy means understanding the threats. 3. Join the conversation in the comments. Do you think law enforcement is winning or losing this battle? What's the solution? Now let's examine the global consequences of this criminal economy and what's being done to stop it. Money laundering isn't a victimless crime. It's an economic weapon with devastating consequences. For economies, laundered money distorts markets, creating artificial demand and inflated prices. Real estate markets in major cities have been warped by billions in laundered funds flowing into properties, pricing out legitimate buyers. For governments, tax revenue is lost as wealth disappears into offshore accounts. The IMF estimates that money laundering represents 2 to 5% of global GDP, between $800 billion and $2 trillion annually. That's funding that could support healthcare, education, and infrastructure. For legitimate businesses, companies operating legally can't compete against criminal enterprises with unlimited capital and no tax burden. This creates unfair markets where crime pays better than honest work. For society, laundered money funds terrorism, organized crime, human trafficking, and drug epidemics. Every dollar successfully laundered enables further criminal activity. Recognizing money laundering as a global threat, countries established the Financial Action Task Force (FATF) in 1989. FATF sets international standards for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. It evaluates countries' compliance, publishes blacklists of non-compliant jurisdictions, and coordinates international enforcement efforts. FATF's recommendations include NIDA's customer due diligence requirements, beneficial ownership transparency, suspicious transaction reporting, cross-border information sharing, regulation of virtual assets and cryptocurrencies. Countries that fail to comply face sanctions, banking restrictions, and economic isolation. This creates pressure for even secrecy havens to improve transparency. The United States maintains one of the world's most comprehensive anti-money laundering frameworks. The Bank Secrecy Act, 1970, requires financial institutions to maintain records and report suspicious activities. The USA PT Right Act, 2001, expanded these requirements, demanding enhanced due diligence for foreign accounts and prohibiting shell banks. The Anti-Money Laundering Act, 2020 modernized regulations, requiring beneficial ownership disclosure and expanding cryptocurrency oversight. FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, collects and analyzes reports, sharing intelligence with law enforcement. Banks filed over 2.3 million suspicious activity reports in 2020 alone, flagging potentially illegal transactions for investigation. But the system has weaknesses. The sheer volume of reports overwhelms investigators. Many SRs never receive follow-up. Enforcement is inconsistent. The European Union has implemented 5 anti-money laundering directives, each strengthening oversight. AMLD4 required beneficial ownership registries for companies and trusts. AMLD5 made these registries public, creating transparency around shell company ownership. AMLD6 expanded criminal liability and enhanced international cooperation. The EU also mandates that cryptocurrency exchanges implement KYC and AML compliance, treating them like traditional financial institutions. These regulations have increased transparency significantly, but enforcement varies between member states, and criminals exploit these inconsistencies. September 2020, leaked documents from FinCEN revealed a devastating truth. The system isn't working. The FinCEN files consisted of over 2,100 suspicious activity reports filed by banks between 2000 and 2017, documenting over $2 trillion in potentially illicit transactions. The revelations were damning. Banks continued processing transactions for clients they knew were involved in criminal activity. Suspicious activity reports were filed, then ignored, while the transactions continued. Money linked to Russian oligarchs, organized crime, and corrupt officials flowed freely through major international banks. JP Morgan Chase moved money for individuals and companies linked to massive fraud. Deutsche Bank processed funds for Jeffrey Epstein years after his conviction. HSBC facilitated transactions for Ponzi schemes and sanctioned entities. The banks paid fines when caught, but the fines were dwarfed by the profits from the illicit business. The FinCEN files proved that reporting suspicious activity isn't enough. Without enforcement and consequences, the reporting system becomes security theater, creating the appearance of oversight while criminals operate freely. Despite the challenges, international cooperation has achieved significant victories. Operation Dark Hunter, 2021, a coordinated action across 9 countries, led to 150 arrests and seizure of $31 million in cash and cryptocurrency from dark web operations. The Panama Papers investigation resulted in billions in recovered taxes and dozens of criminal prosecutions worldwide. The Wirecard scandal exposed a multi-billion-dollar fraud, leading to arrests and increased scrutiny of fintech companies. Cryptocurrency exchange shutdowns have disrupted laundering operations, including the 22 takedown of several exchanges facilitating Russian sanctions evasion. These successes prove that when nations coordinate, share intelligence, and prioritize enforcement, progress is possible. Regulations continue evolving to address new threats. Cryptocurrency oversight is expanding globally, with most countries now requiring exchanges to implement KYC and AML protocols. Beneficial ownership registries are becoming standard, making shell companies less anonymous. Enhanced due diligence requirements force banks to verify the source of funds, not just customer identity. AI and machine learning are being deployed to analyze transaction patterns, identifying suspicious activity more effectively than human reviewers. The travel rule for cryptocurrency requires exchanges to share sender and recipient information for large transactions, bringing crypto in line with traditional wire transfer regulations. But as regulations tighten, criminals adapt. The battle is perpetual. Here's the uncomfortable reality. The global financial system is designed for efficiency and privacy. These same features enable crime. Instantaneous global transactions, essential for legitimate commerce, also enable rapid laundering. Financial privacy, a reasonable expectation for law-abiding citizens, provides cover for criminals. International banking, necessary for global trade, creates jurisdictional complications that criminals exploit. There's an inherent tension between financial freedom and financial security. Finding the balance is the central challenge of modern financial regulation. Too much oversight stifles innovation and infringes on privacy. Too little enables crime. Every regulatory decision involves trade-offs. The fight against money laundering isn't just a law enforcement issue. It's a philosophical debate about what kind of financial system we want and what we're willing to sacrifice for security. If you think money laundering is sophisticated now, understand this. We're only at the beginning. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing criminal finance. Machine learning algorithms can now not protect vulnerable financial institutions with weak compliance, optimize transaction patterns to avoid detection algorithm, automate the creation of shell companies and fake identities, generate deepfake documentation to pass verification checks. AI-powered laundering systems can process millions of microtransactions simultaneously, each individually undetectable, collectively moving billions. The criminals are building systems that learn and adapt faster than human investigators can track them. Cryptocurrency privacy is advancing rapidly. Zero-knowledge proofs allow transaction verification without revealing any transaction details. Homomorphic encryption enables computation on encrypted data, meaning financial operations can occur without anyone, including the service provider, knowing what's being processed. Layer 2 solutions, like the Lightning Network, allow Bitcoin transactions to occur off-chain, visible only to the participants. Decentralized finance, DeFi platforms, operate without central control, facilitating complex financial operations, including laundering, without any institution that can be regulated or subpoenaed. Each innovation makes money more private and laundering easier. Governments are responding with their own digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, would give authorities unprecedented visibility into financial transactions. Every digital dollar could be tracked in real time, making laundering theoretically impossible within the CBDC system. But this creates dystopian surveillance possibilities. Governments monitoring every purchase, every transaction, every financial decision. It also doesn't solve the problem. Criminals simply won't use CBDCs. They'll continue using privacy coins and decentralized systems. The law-abiding becomes surveilled while criminals remain in the shadows. CBDCs might enhance government control without meaningfully reducing financial crime. The cutting edge of financial crime is moving toward decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs. DAOs are organizations without leaders, governed by smart contracts on blockchains. They can hold assets, execute transactions, and make decisions based on coded rules. No CEO to arrest, no headquarters to raid, no jurisdiction with clear authority. Imagine a money laundering operation that's not run by people but by code, operating automatically across global blockchain networks. It could accept deposits, execute complex layering operations, and distribute clean funds, all without human intervention. DAOs are legal gray areas. Shutting them down requires attacking the underlying blockchain, which is distributed across thousands of computers globally. It's nearly impossible. We're approaching a future where criminal organizations become truly anonymous, automated, and unstoppable by traditional enforcement methods. As criminals exploit cryptocurrency, investigators have developed blockchain analytics. Companies like Chainalysis, Elliptic, and CipherTrace use advanced algorithms to trace cryptocurrency flows, identify patterns, and unmask laundering operations. They've helped law enforcement recover billions in stolen cryptocurrency, identify dark web marketplace operators, trace ransomware payments to criminal organizations, sanction addresses associated with terrorist financing. But criminals are fighting back. They use mixing services with increasingly sophisticated tumbling algorithms, privacy coins immune to blockchain analysis, cross-chain bridges that break analysis tools' tracking capabilities, decentralized exchanges that don't maintain surveillance data. It's an arms race. Analysis tools improve. Criminal techniques adapt. The cycle continues. Over the next decade, expect global regulatory convergence. As FATF strengthens standards and enforcement, even traditional secrecy havens will increase transparency. The cost of non-compliance, international banking isolation, will become too high. Cryptocurrency, mainstreaming and regulation. As crypto becomes ubiquitous, governments will implement comprehensive oversight. Expect licensing requirements for exchanges, mandatory transaction monitoring, and potential bans on privacy coins. AI-powered compliance. Financial institutions will deploy artificial intelligence to analyze transactions in real time, identifying suspicious patterns faster than any human system. Increased international cooperation. Cross-border investigations will become routine as data-sharing frameworks improve, and nations recognize that financial crime respects no borders. But also expect criminal innovation. Every regulatory advance will be met with technical countermeasures. The criminal underground is adaptive, well-funded, and highly motivated. Privacy backlash. As financial surveillance expands, expect resistance from privacy advocates, cryptocurrency proponents, and civil liberties organizations. The tension between security and freedom will intensify. New secrecy jurisdictions. As traditional havens close, new ones will emerge, possibly digital jurisdictions with no physical location. The only certainty is continued evolution on both sides. Technology will advance, regulations will evolve, but one constant remains: the human element. Money laundering succeeds because of mixed, corrupt officials who accept bribes, professionals who prioritize fees over ethics, banks that tolerate profitable criminality, jurisdictions that profit from financial secrecy. Technology is a tool. The real battle is cultural and political, building systems where integrity is valued over profit, where enforcement is consistent, where consequences are real. Until the incentives change, the cycle continues. The future of money laundering isn't determined by technology alone. It's determined by whether society chooses transparency and accountability over short-term gains. That choice is made daily, by regulators, by institutions, by professionals, and by each of us. We've journeyed from cash-stuffed bags to encrypted blockchains, from physical borders to digital anonymity, from simple bank fraud to AI-powered laundering systems. Money laundering has transformed from a local crime into a global digital enterprise that moves trillions annually, destabilizes economies, funds terrorism, and corrupts the financial systems we all depend on. But here's what matters most. This isn't someone else's problem. Every laundered dollar distorts your economy. Every shell company raises your taxes to compensate for lost revenue. Every dark web marketplace funds operations that threaten your security. Understanding these systems isn't just intellectual exercise, it's financial self-defense in the modern world. The battle for global financial integrity is happening right now. Regulators are trying to close loopholes before the next crisis. Criminals are deploying technologies to stay ahead of enforcement. Financial institutions are caught between profit incentives and legal obligations. And the rest of us, we're watching to see which side prevails. The outcome matters because what determines whether crime pays better than honest work. It shapes what financial privacy means in the digital age. It influences whether the global economy functions fairly or favors those willing to break the rules. This is about more than catching criminals. It's about what kind of world we build. If this investigation opened your eyes to how modern financial crime operates, here's what I need from you. First, subscribe to Crimes After Midnight and turn on notifications. We're producing the most comprehensive deep dives into financial crime, cybersecurity, and the dark side of technology. This is just the beginning. Second, share this video. Financial literacy means understanding the threats we face. Help spread this knowledge. Third, engage below. What shocked you most about this investigation? What should our next deep dive cover? The community here is building collective knowledge. Be part of it. Fourth, consider supporting us on Patreon, if applicable. These investigations require hundreds of hours of research. Your support makes them possible and helps us go even deeper. Final question for the comments. What's the solution? More regulation, better technology, harsher penalties? Or is financial crime an inevitable feature of global capitalism? I want to hear your perspective. Remember this: knowledge is power. The criminals operate in shadows, counting on ignorance and apathy. Every person who understands these systems is one more person who can't be exploited, one more person demanding accountability. The future isn't written. Technology will evolve, regulations will change, but the fundamental battle between transparency and secrecy, between accountability and anonymity, will continue. Which side prevails depends on awareness, engagement, and collective action. Stay informed, stay vigilant, stay engaged. This is Crimes After Midnight. We'll see you in the next investigation.